that point, really your only alternative is to rebuild the piano. The strings come off, the plate is lifted out, a custom pin block is crafted for that specific piano, and that's an involved, expensive process. Are there other possibilities? Yes. Welcome to livingpianos.com. I'm Robert Estrin, asking the question, what can you do with a piano that won't stay in tune? There is a lot to this subject, and stay to the end because I'm going to give you tips that could really make a difference for your piano. Well, first of all, you have to determine why the piano isn't staying in tune, and there's a lot of potential reasons for this. Just the environment the piano is in is really critical. Having stability of temperature and, even more importantly, humidity can make a huge difference in the stability of the tuning of your piano. Did you know that if you go like years without tuning your piano and then you tune it, it's not going to hold very long. In fact, the more often you tune a piano, the more stable it becomes over time. You never save by putting off tuning, because the next tuning not only won't hold, but you may have to tune it twice in a row, just get it back up to pitch. And that second tuning won't hold very long. So number one, provide a stable environment for your piano. Number two, tune it often. Now, how often, you might wonder? People ask that question all the time. I reference sometimes the Piano Technicians Guild, a recommendation of 4 times a year. A lot of people are shocked by that figure. And I always tell people a minimum of twice a year is really important because of seasonal changes. When you go from heat to air conditioning and back again, your piano could shift. Funny thing is, it might sound fine, but the whole piano could lose pitch or sometimes even go up in pitch. And once again, the secret to tuning stability is tuning it enough so you get ahead of the curve. Because a piano that gets stable, for example, an extreme case, at Music Conservatory, the 2 Steinways on stage were tuned every day. And I had friends who were piano technicians there, and they said, yeah, we go in there, they almost never have a note out of tune because they've been tuned daily for so long that they're incredibly stable. It's almost impossible to knock it out of tune. At my father's recording sessions, not only were the pianos tuned for the session, but the tuner was there every time my father took a break, or if the engineers noticed a unison out, they touch it up, keeping it in tune. Now, that's an extreme case. My father always had his pianos tuned monthly in his studio because of the massive amount of teaching and practicing he did on his pianos. So those are some general guidelines for you. Now, what if you do all that, you provide a nice environment, you tune your piano, but the pins are loose? Now, there are 2 possibilities here. Here you do a little bit of detective work. You notice which pins are loose, and you can mark them with chalk inside your piano. If they're forming a straight line, you can ascertain that there's probably a crack inside the pin block. You could try putting oversized pins, but it's just going to enlarge the crack. At that point, really your only alternative is to rebuild the piano. The strings come off, the plate is lifted out, a custom pin block is crafted for that specific piano with the holes for all the 220 to 240 tuning pins, drilled with thousandths of an inch tolerance at an exact angle. It's restrung, tuned many times to get it to hold. And that's an involved, expensive process. Are there other possibilities? Yes. Now, let's say it's not just one area with pins in a straight line, but it's just a general area of the keyboard that the pins are not quite as tight and maybe some are slipping slightly. Well, there are a couple of things you can do. First of all, you can look to see if there is space between the coils of the wire and the plate, the top of the plate. If there's room, a technician can tap the pins in a little bit further, getting a little bit more bite on that pin. They must do this very carefully. Make sure your piano technician knows how to do this properly, because the bottom of the pin block must be supported, or you can destroy your pin block because the lower plies of wood can come out and then you have a disaster. But sometimes that can make the difference if they're just a little bit loose. When you get a little bit more traction on those pins, boom, done. Are there other things you can do? Well, yeah, there's chemical agents, believe it or not, that sometimes can actually make the difference, and your piano can hold for years if it's close to being holding well. It does affect the feel of the tuning pins a little bit. They feel a little bit scratchy instead of smooth, but it can sometimes be a lifesaver if you have a piano that is not worth rebuilding, but you just want to keep it in tune. It's actually like super glue, believe it or not, is the compound. It's not like gluing your pins in. It just provides a little bit more surface area in there. And sometimes that little trick or tip can sometimes make the difference if a piano is not worthy of the expense of rebuilding. Or another possibility, the last one I'm going to leave you with, if they're just all a little bit loose, but there's no, they're not slipping uniformly in a line or anything like that, you can restring your piano with tuning pins that are slightly larger. What pianos start off with what are called 2-op pins. And every time you go up one number, it's 1/1000th of an inch. Sometimes you go from 2s to 3s or 2s to 4s. Restring your piano with the existing pin block. That way the pin block, the plate doesn't have to come out. You don't have to craft a new pin block. So to recap, number one, provide a stable environment for your piano in terms of temperature and humidity. Service your piano on a regular basis, gaining more and more stability. If you find that you have certain pins that are slipping and they form a straight line, you have no choice but to rebuild your piano. Otherwise, if they're just generally a little bit loose, if there's room to tap them, great. Sometimes a chemical agent can help to gain a little bit more traction, or even re-pinning your piano with slightly larger tuning pins. Those are all different techniques. If anybody else has any ideas about this, put it here in the comments at livingpianos.com. We are your online piano store. I'm Robert Estrin. Thanks, everybody, all your subscribers, ringing the bell, thumbs up, helps to reach more people who love the piano like we all do. See you next time. Bye-bye.